Alright YouTube, so today we're going to have a look at this beast, the Sigma Art 50-100mm f1.8. We'll talk about some of the pros and cons, but first, let's have a look at some footage that I've shot on it. I hope you enjoyed that footage. First off, I am going to say I love this lens. I couldn't find a lot of videos recommending this lens for video work. There's loads recommending it for photography work, which is great, but I wanted to make one specifically for video work because for me, it's stunning. But let's talk about some of the cons. This is a full frame only lens, so if you use it on a full frame camera, you are going to get some vignetting throughout the focal range. Speaking of the focal range, 50 to 100, that is a pretty small focal range. You don't get as much range as you would with a 70 to 200, but it does make a good companion to the Sigma Art 18 to 35. I've never really had any problems with the focal range. Another thing that annoyed me slightly when I first got this lens was that the tripod plate is very close to the zoom ring. So when you're zooming and you've got it on a tripod, the tripod plate does get in the way a little bit. I've since found ways of working around it and I'm just used to it now, but at first it did annoy me a little bit. There's no inbuilt stabilization on this lens, which can be tricky, but again, I found ways of making it work, whether I always have it on a tripod or I shoulder mount it or whatever it is, I found ways of making it work, but that might annoy some people. It's a heavy beast, it feels very well made, but it is heavy. But for me, the shots are totally worth it. I'm never using it for like massively long amounts of time. So for me, it's worth having that extra little bit of weight that makes it feel well made and really pro. And the shots are totally worth it for me. Let's move on to some of the positives. This lens is super sharp all the way through the range, and with most apertures, I'm getting a really good sharp picture. The colors are absolutely beautiful, again throughout the range. The bokeh, bokeh, is absolutely stunning. Just beautiful, man. It's an absolute bokeh machine. It's really well matched to the Sigma Art 18 to 35 from the same range. So those images match up really well together in post. So the fact that the colors match, the sharpness matches, huge bonus for me, man. You get f1.8 throughout the range on this lens, which is fantastic. That means it works really well in low light. It's super sharp and you're letting in a load of light, so you get a really good image quality even in low light. With the cameras that I use, originally I used it with the Blackmagic Ursa Mini Pro 4.6K, worked beautiful with that. Now I've got the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera 6K, also works absolutely beautiful. You've got to get your rig right, because like I said, no inbuilt stabilization, so you've got to make sure that you're not getting shaky footage out of it, but there are ways around that, and I'm sure you'll find what works for you. I personally never use the autofocus feature. I always manual focus. I've got Blackmagic cameras, they're not great at autofocus, as I'm sure most of you know. But I did test it out and it works pretty fast. There's a little bit of noise, so that's something to be aware of, but it seems to work pretty well. So I would highly recommend this lens. It isn't cheap, but it also isn't super expensive. And for the range that you're covering and the image quality that you get, I personally think it's totally worth it. I've shot dramas on this, I've shot sport on it, I've shot promos on it, and for every situation that I found myself in shooting with this lens, I absolutely love it, man. A few quirky little things that we talked about earlier, nothing that I haven't found I'm willing to work around, and the image makes up for all of those little flaws for me. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got something out of it. If you've got any questions about this lens or any of the stuff that I've shot on it, feel free to drop me a line in the comments. If you like this video, then wonderful. Please feel free to give me a like and a subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next one. Peace!